will host this year's Super Bowl, of course. Let's go to Cincinnati. Day one of training camp. We'll call it an altercation. In the middle of it was wide receiver number 1, Jamar Chase, who went at it against a few members of the Bengals defense, including DJ Turner and Jalen Davis. Okay, everyone was fine. I don't even know if you could call it an altercation. We'll call it a scuffle. CC, like, love, or hate this for Jamar Chase specifically?
I don't know if it's any of those. This is just training camp. Nobody's happy because you're going to be around the same guys for a month and you're hitting each other and it's hot outside. This is requisite. This is what comes along with the job. And I don't know that this is an indicator that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be a Super Bowl contender, but I can promise you, if you're at a training camp and there aren't any fights, your team is going nowhere. So this is much ado about nothing. This is what happens in pretty much every single training camp environment.
Every good team I've ever been on, you have fights. If you don't have fights, there's a problem, because it probably means the intensity of practice isn't what it should be. The urgency isn't what it should be at all. I mean, shoot, I was at Vandy. We won more games than we had in 97 years, and in one practice, I ripped my punter's helmet off, was about to hit him with it, and then luckily guys broke it up. So, things get intense. Not proud of that moment necessarily, but we were good. It was an intense practice, right? Had some fire to you. So I think everybody in that building is feeling the pressure and the urgency. I think that's a good thing right now.
You know what? I'm going now from like it to love it after listening to these two. Two former players telling you have to do this at training camp. CC says every day to me, healthy debate within a team is healthy debate. So show me that you care. Joe Burrow comparing this group to the 2019 LSU team, undefeated team. Show me that you care. Fighting, being competitive, something is not good enough on that practice field for the Cincinnati Bengals. Jamar Chase is showing me he cares because someone is not doing something to his elite level. You know what? I've now gone from like it to love it.
Yeah, they didn't want to answer, but it sounded like they loved it too.
Oh,
so I think it's a clean sweep on everyone loves it. The only reason I would push back, I tend to love this too, because I feel like competitive teams have this kind of energy, is the fact that Jamar Chase is in the middle, and what if he got hurt? That's just me being cautiously, not optimistic, but cautious, I think. Nonetheless, everyone was healthy, and so all is good. Let's focus more on the Bengals here, because they made moves this offseason to help that defense that really struggled a year ago. They traded a top 10 pick to the Giants for Dexter Lawrence. Cincinnati had only 2 draft picks in the first 125 picks and used both on defensive players. The Bengals gave up 29 points per game last season. I told you they were bad. That was the 3rd most in the NFL. Joe Burrow, you remember he also missed 9 games. He was banged up. Here is Burrow now yesterday on upgrading the roster.
We had a great offseason on paper, but now we have to go and put all these pieces together and have individual improvement, have cohesive improvement, and find out who we are as a team and gel.
It's kind of hard, well, not for Chris Canty, because I've heard his opinions on this, but for others maybe to remember, that the Bengals have missed the playoffs the last 3 seasons. If the Bengals miss the playoffs for now a 4th season, what does that mean for Joe Burrow and the Bengals, Evan?
That he's going to ask out. That he's going to ask out. Because CC is very critical of him, as you mentioned, Shay. But let's be clear on this. When you look at the gap and the difference between what it costs to pay someone to be on your team and what it costs to pay them to not be on your team, this is really the last year that gap is ridiculous. About a $70 million gap. Next year, for the 27th season, it's about $20 million to keep him versus not have him. There's no world in which the Cincinnati Bengals won't want him, but at some point, I think he's going to not want them. And I think there are 2 quarterbacks in that AFC North that may have basketball-style ask-outs after this season. Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's not going to get blamed. He has the fan club bigger than any quarterback in the NFL. People love this guy, make excuses for him all the time. Even when he's hurt, it's everyone else's fault. Let's assume health. Let's assume 17 games of health. And let's assume productive play. If they're not in the playoffs, they don't win that division, they don't make a run like they did in 21, he has every right to sit there and say, I'm done. Because how many other quarterbacks have done that in Cincinnati? A bunch. Yep. He wouldn't be the only one. So I think if they don't make a run this year, he says to them, I'm done here.
Yeah, he'd be the next in a long line of MVP quarterbacks that don't realize the promise of the team's success. And all of those quarterbacks happen to win and go to Super Bowls and not win the title, not win the big one, right? Ken Anderson, Boomer Esiason, feels like Joe Burrow's the next one in that group. But here's the thing. If the Bengals don't make it to the playoffs, then all of a sudden we have to start having the conversation about Joe Burrow not being an elite quarterback. Because at a certain point in your career, you become complicit in the mediocrity that has been the Cincinnati Bengals. And I know everybody wants to hold on to what happened in 2021 when they went on a Super Bowl run. But I want to contextualize that properly. Since that point, 24 out of the 32 NFL teams have fired their head coaches. It's been a long time by NFL standards. At some point, it has to change. This upcoming season, they're bringing back all of their starters on the offensive side of the ball. They addressed the defense in a major way, brought in 4 new starters, including 3 on the defensive line. It is time for Joe Burrow to take this team back to the postseason. Because if they don't, then again, it's an uncomfortable conversation about whether or not he's elite.
And they bring back their head coach as well, the only team in the AFC North to do that. What do you think?
Yeah, if they don't make the playoffs, it's you make a great point. Joe Burrow's going to want out. If that's not the case, they're going to blow everything up around him, right? From a roster, coaching staff, and they got to find a way to continue to entice him to come back. I like what they did on defense. I like the additions they made. Boye Mafe is a guy that can add pass rush stability on the outside. Cassius Howell is a guy that now with potentially the Shamar Stewart injury, he's going to get some more looks as a rookie that's a really talented pass rusher. What if the defense is good this year and the offense doesn't live up to standards? Then how does this change, right? Because to your point, the excuses are gone for this offense, right? Now you can't say if the defense doesn't improve, but the defense, the injuries, if they're healthy. So I think there is actually more pressure on Joe Burrow than a lot of people maybe want to admit, because everyone looks at the defense and everyone says, well, it's been the defense. It's not Joe, it's been the defense. Now that box is kind of checked. Okay, they're better on that side of the ball. Now Joe's got to go prove it. And I think he can and will, but I think there's a ton of pressure to that camp fight for Jamar Chase that everybody's feeling on offense. Now the defense seemingly on paper is improving.
Well, when you said you think he can, it sounds like potential. And as we know in the NFL, potential gets you fired. If you're talking about potential, that means you can't talk about winning. And if you're looking at a 4-season span when you don't go to the playoffs, it's hard to justify the elite moniker. I mean, if you want to go to the annals of NFL history and look at Hall of Fame quarterbacks, the only one that I can think of that went 4 straight seasons being outside looking at the playoffs is Dan Marino. In one of those years, during that span, was a strike-shortened season, and you're talking about that time in the NFL in the late 80s, only 10 teams making the postseason. In today's NFL, you got 14 teams making the playoffs. So there are 0 excuses as to why Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals can't get this done. He has this team the exact way he wanted it. Last offseason, he campaigned for his wide receivers to get paid. He wanted Trey Hendrickson back in the fold. And guess what? The Bengals found a way to make it all work with all of them back. And it resulted in the Cincinnati Bengals, again, missing the postseason in a year where Lamar Jackson missed the month of the season. Aaron Rodgers was 23rd in QBR, and the Cleveland Browns were a disaster with 3 different starting quarterbacks.
Well, Burrow also missed 9 games.
I understand. I understand that he missed 9 games, but a lot of that has to do with the offensive line not being as good and the roster construction allowing the quarterback to take more hits than he probably should.
I want to go back to something Jordan said. So you're saying it's on the table for you that the Cincinnati defense outplays the Cincinnati offense.
No, but I think they're one of the worst in the NFL. If they could just be, I don't need them to be great, but if they can be good, now the excuses are gone. Because to your point, a lot of really talented Hall of Fame quarterbacks have taken teams with bad defenses to the playoffs. And if you don't do that 4 years in a row, then the blame's got to go somewhere, and it can't just be on the defense.
Well, because my mind started going to a place when you're saying if the defense raises their game, but the offense doesn't raise with it, well, then Cincinnati may look at it and say, this is the number 1 QB-heavy draft, and there's all these teams like the Jets and others with a gazillion picks where maybe they say there's an opportunity for us. I don't think they're ever going to get rid of Joe Burrow. That's not my point.
Shot.
My point is it worthy of a conversation if he is outperformed by his own defense this year? Because when you're bringing up, Dan Marino wasn't outperformed by that Dolphins defense at any point, really. Right? I mean, when you're thinking about his greatness, it was always he didn't have enough at the running back position, whatever it is. So if we're going to look at Cincinnati and say the fascinating part and the reason that this team is so juicy for this season and such a hot-button team is because this is a future Hall of Fame quarterback without a Hall of Fame resume over the last 4 years.
I think the only way that conversation even enters the realm of reality is if it's an injury to Joe Burrow. Right. And then you have back-to-back seasons where you're wondering the long-term stability of that position. Not because when he's at his best and when he's healthy, he's one of the best.
But that's a part of your job responsibilities, man. Listen, you can't have 3 seasons out of the 6 that you played with you on IR, right? 3 in the last 3 years, this dude has missed 16 games.
Yeah, no, I know.
So the best ability is availability. We gotta pump the brakes when it starts coming to the conversation of Joe Burrow being elite if they have yet another season outside looking into the playoffs.
Then we'll have
yes.
that kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Remember, the Bengals, as we just talked about, did win their division in 2021, and then they won it in 2022 as well. The Eagles, similar. They are coming off now back-to-back division crowns, looking to improve, especially offensively, after a lackluster display last season. They also decided to move on from A.J. Brown, who is now in New England. Here's Jalen Hurts on the team sticking together.
Well, I think that's something that, honestly, it starts from Coach Sirianni, and his message in his first words in yesterday's team meeting was about being together and being aligned. And when I was taking notes of it, I just, thought about 100% alignment and zero entitlement. And so as a team, that's what everybody's pushing.
100% alignment, zero entitlement. Was there a shot at A.J. Brown?
1,000%. I spent a lot of time around Jalen Hurts in college. Who was his college coach majority of the time? Nick Saban. Did Nick Saban ever mince words? Did Nick Saban, every time he talked to the media, have a message for his team somewhere woven in there? That's the tree that Jalen Hurts is from. So absolutely, I think he is not just maybe sending a shot or a message, but also sending a message to his team about who they are now in this post-A.J. Brown era.
Undoubtedly a shot at A.J. Brown, but his way. In his way is team, and more team. I'll do less if we can do more. That's the Nick Saban thing. How do I sacrifice for the good of the team? And I think it sounds like what he's telling you is, shot, if you believe it's a shot, which we do, is A.J. Brown did not sacrifice for the good of the team. 0 catches in a win has to be okay, and it wasn't for A.J. Brown last year.
Well, yeah, but Philadelphia Eagles also had 3 halves of football last year where they had 0 passing yards. That's unacceptable.
It's not good.
And in a lot of ways, A.J. Brown was the canary in the coal mine saying that there was something wrong. And lo and behold, we have an early playoff exit in the wild card round, the first playoff loss in the Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts era at home. And then we're talking about some embarrassing performances down the stretch, most notably the Black Friday game where they let the Chicago Bears run for 280 yards. So, again, I understand Jalen Hurts stating the obvious and the belief in Philly that it's going to be addition by subtraction with A.J. Brown. But now here comes the pressure of being able to go out and prove yourselves right. And there are going to be stakes involved because no franchise in the National Football League treats the head coach and quarterback position as fungible, more so than the Philadelphia Eagles and Howie Roseman.
Jalen Hurts also struggled last year, okay? Yes, the receivers struggled. The entire offense struggled. There were halves where they had negative yards, as you kind of just pointed out. He only had 5, I believe it was 5 rushing touchdowns last year. It was his fewest of any season that he had, Jalen Hurts. But now as you look forward, do you think that he's going to struggle or do you think he's going to thrive? You kind of answered this without A.J. Brown. Jordan.
I think their problems were not all A.J. last year, right? It was what they did pre-snap and how they attacked the field. If you look at this offensive scheme, Jalen Hurts last 2 years threw the ball between the numbers at the lowest rate in the NFL by far. It wasn't even close. So they're really only attacking the perimeter. And then you look at pre-snap. They motioned at 49% last year, 29th in the NFL. They were under center around 24%, 27th in the NFL. They ran the 4th lowest amount of screens. The reason I'm bringing these things up, not that they instantly fix your offense, but they make defenses think. And so last year they were just lining up AJ in one spot, Devontae in another spot, and going, win. Somebody win. So they weren't trying pre-snap to stress the defense. Sean Mannion, yes, hasn't called plays in this position, 33 years old, but they're going to be more multiple from a formation standpoint, motion standpoint. They'll be under center at times. I'm not going to major in that with Hurts because he still needs to have that shotgun rush ability, I think, that's so dangerous. But they're going to stress defenses pre-snap, and so it's going to be a much better unit as a whole, even though they're missing a big-time wide receiver.
It was hard to watch. It was looked so unorganized last year. Like, it just looked like, what were we doing? And to correct myself, 8 rushing touchdowns last season, fewest in the last 5 seasons.
It's not what we were doing. It's that the defenses and the opposing coaching staffs know exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, that was
when you have the same offense, the same routes,
and you're lining up
year over year, the same tendencies, and guess what? You're in shotgun, so that means there are 11 sets of eyeballs that know exactly where the football is at all times. It's going to be hard to be productive. And so that was the challenge facing the Philadelphia Eagles last year, and that has to be different this year. One of the concerns that I have for this team is up front on the offensive line, because we've seen for so many years when they were contending for titles and going to Super Bowl runs, Jeff Stoutland, the longtime offensive line coach, he's no longer there. So what does that look like? How does that impact what Nick Sirianni and Sean Mannion want to do with the personnel that they have available to them on that front. If you can't block them, you can't beat them.